I still remember the sound of the fork hitting my plate that night. It was Thanksgiving, and the house was loud with laughter, but inside me, everything went quiet. When my mother placed a crumpled $2 lottery ticket into my hand, I smiled instead of crying. I smiled because 30 people were watching. I smiled because I had learned a long time ago how to survive moments like that and silenced out. My sister sat across from me, holding a glossy envelope. Inside it was a luxury cruise package. $17,000. Everyone clapped. Someone whistled. My father nodded with pride. Then my mother turned to me and said loud and clear, "This is what fits your situation, Naomi." Her words floated across the table like smoke, slow and sharp, and no one stopped her. Not even me. Welcome to Auntie Rose Narrates. Before today's story of betrayal and self-discovery, please subscribe and hit like to help these stories be heard. Drop your city or country in the comments. It always warms my heart. Now let's begin. I was 41 years old, sitting at my parents' table in Atlanta, surrounded by family who knew my whole life, yet somehow did not know me at all. I folded the ticket carefully and slipped it into my pocket, not because it mattered, but because I did not want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me react. Inside, my chest felt tight, like something fragile was cracking. Piece by piece, that little ticket was never supposed to be anything. It was meant to be a joke, a reminder of where they believed I belonged. What none of them knew was that I would check the numbers 2 days later, alone in my kitchen with cold coffee on the counter and sunlight barely touching the floor. What none of them knew was that my hands would start shaking so badly I had to sit down. $10 million. That number doesn't shout. It doesn't dance. It sits heavy, like truth you can't put back once you see it. But this story is not about winning money. It's about what happens when love is measured, when family decides your worth out loud, and when silence becomes the only way to stay standing because that Thanksgiving dinner did not end when the plates were cleared. It followed me home. It followed me into my memories. And it forced me to finally face a question I had been avoiding my whole life. What do you do when the people who raised you are the ones who break you first? I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, in a neighborhood where everyone knew your name and your business. Our house sat on a quiet street lined with old trees that dropped their leaves every fall, right in time for Thanksgiving. It was not a big house, but it always felt full. Full of voices, full of smells from the kitchen, full of rules that were never written down but always understood by my parents. Harold and Lorraine Williams believed deeply in appearances, not in a shallow way, but in a careful way. They believed how a family looked to others said something about who they were inside. My father was a steady man. He woke up early, worked for the city, and came home at the same time every evening. He spoke softly, but when he did speak, people listened. My mother was the heart of the house. She carried everything. The plans, the worries, the pride. She had a way of smiling that could warm a room, and a way of going quiet that could make you feel small. Growing up, I learned to read those moods quickly. I learned when to speak and when to stay silent. I learned that being helpful earned approval faster than asking questions. I was good at school, not brilliant, but steady. I didn't cause trouble. I didn't demand attention. I thought that was enough. Then there was my sister. Danielle. Danielle came into the world like she was meant to be seen. Even as a child, she had a confidence that drew people toward her. Teachers praised her. Family members laughed louder when she spoke. My parents never hid their pride in her, and I don't think they meant any harm by it. They simply responded to her energy. She was bold where I was careful. She reached where I waited. As children, we were not enemies. We shared a room. We whispered late at night. We borrowed each other's clothes. But as we grew older, something shifted. Comparisons began quietly. Who did better in school? Who spoke better in public? Who made the family proud in ways people could see? I learned to step back without being asked out. By the time we became adults, the gap between us felt wider than 3 years. Danielle married young, to a man who came from money and ambition. Their life moved fast. Promotions, travel, big decisions made easily. My parents spoke of her life like it was proof that they had done something right. When people asked about their children, they led with Danielle's accomplishments. My path was slower. I went to college, found work I liked, married a man I loved. We built a life that felt warm and ordinary. But ordinary does not impress people who measure success loudly. When my marriage ended, quietly and without drama, I returned to my parents' home for a short while. I told myself it was temporary. I didn't realize how much it would change the way they saw me. They didn't shout. They didn't accuse. They worried out loud. They suggested. They compared. Danielle handled things differently, my mother would say, like it was advice. My father would nod in silence. I felt like something unfinished sitting in their house. Eventually, I moved out. I found a small apartment. I rebuilt my routine. I worked. I paid my bills. I learned how to sit alone without feeling lonely. From the outside, my life was fine. But inside my family, I had become the one who needed explaining. Holidays became complicated after that. I still showed up. I still cooked. I still helped clean. But I noticed how conversations shifted when I entered a room. How concern replaced pride. How gifts became smaller, quieter, more practical. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself love was not measured in things. Thanksgiving remained the one day I clung to. It felt rooted, familiar. It was the one time of year when everyone gathered without excuses. No matter what had happened during the year, we came back to that table. I believed that meant something. That year, I arrived early, like always. My mother handed me an apron without asking. We cooked side by side. We spoke about recipes, about distant relatives, about nothing that mattered. I watched her face for signs, warmth, distance, approval. I found all of them in small doses. The house filled slowly. Voices layered over one another. Plates stacked. Laughter spilled down the hallway. When Danielle arrived, dressed beautifully and full of energy, the room shifted around her. People leaned in, asked questions, listened closely. I smiled and stepped aside, the way I had learned to do. Dinner itself was long and loud. My father carved the turkey. My mother beamed at the full table. 30 people sat under one roof, eating the same food, sharing the same space. I remember thinking that maybe this year would be different. Maybe we were all older now. Maybe the sharp edges had softened. When dessert was served, my mother stood up. She clinked her glass and said she wanted to start a new tradition. Gifts, she said, to celebrate family and gratitude. People smiled. Someone clapped. I felt my stomach tighten, though I didn't know why. I sat there believing I understood my place in that family. I just didn't yet understand how clearly it would be to find Dot after my mother announced the new Thanksgiving tradition. The room filled with soft excitement. People leaned toward each other, whispering guesses. Someone joked about surprise gifts. Someone else laughed and said it was about time my parents did something special like this. I sat still, my hands folded in my lap, listening to the sound of my own breathing. I told myself not to read too much into it. I told myself this was just another moment. My mother reached for the first gift without hesitation. It was a large, neatly wrapped box, heavy enough that she used both hands. She smiled as she called Danielle's name. The room turned toward my sister immediately. Danielle stood up, smoothing her dress, already smiling like she knew what was coming. When she opened the box and pulled out the envelope, the room erupted in applause before she even spoke. "A luxury cruise," my mother announced proudly. "All expenses covered." People gasped. Someone whistled. My father nodded slowly, satisfied. Danielle laughed, covering her mouth, then thanked them, her voice full and bright. She walked around the table, hugging her parents, holding the envelope like proof of something important. Cameras came out. Photos were taken. I clapped too, because that is what you do when you are trying to be gracious. Then my mother turned to me. There was no pause, no build-up. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. She didn't wrap it. She didn't smile the same way. She simply held it out and said my name. When I took it, I felt how thin it was between my fingers. "This is for you," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. "This is what's appropriate for your situation." The words landed quietly, but they didn't disappear. They stayed in the air, heavy and sharp. A few people laughed, unsure if it was a joke. Someone cleared their throat. My father looked down at his plate. Danielle froze, her smile fading just a little. I smiled. I don't know why. Maybe because I had done it so many times before. I unfolded the paper and saw the lottery ticket. $2, crumpled at the edges. I folded it back carefully and slipped it into my pocket like it mattered. No one stopped me. No one said anything. Dinner continued, but something had shifted. Conversations resumed, but they felt distant, like sounds coming from another room. I answered questions automatically. Yes, work was fine. Yes, I was doing okay. No, nothing new. Each answer felt smaller than the last. Later, while I was washing dishes, my aunt came up beside me. She touched my arm gently and said, "You're strong, Naomi." I nodded, even though the word felt heavy. Strength had become another way of telling me not to expect anything. Danielle didn't say much after that. She avoided my eyes. I wondered if she felt embarrassed or relieved or simply confused. We never talked about it that night. We never talked about a lot of things. In the days that followed, the moment replayed itself in my mind. Not loudly, quietly, like a song you can't turn off. I told myself it wasn't personal. I told myself my parents meant well. I told myself money was just money. But something deeper had been touched, something old and familiar. 2 days later, alone in my kitchen, I checked the lottery numbers. I almost didn't. I only did it because the ticket was still in my coat pocket and I found it while looking for my keys. I sat down at the table, more tired than curious, and scanned the numbers slowly. When I realized what I was seeing, my body reacted before my mind did. My hands shook. My chest tightened. I checked again. Then again. $10 million. The room felt suddenly too small. I sat there for a long time, listening to the refrigerator hum, trying to understand what this meant. I didn't tell anyone right away. Not my parents. Not my sister. Not even my closest friend. I needed time. I needed silence. I needed to sit with the truth before it became noise. Money has a way of changing how people look at you, and I wasn't ready for that yet. When I finally did tell my parents, I did it carefully. I invited them over. I made coffee. I spoke slowly. At first, my mother laughed, thinking I was joking. When she realized I wasn't, her face changed. Not to joy, not to pride, to something like disbelief. My father asked questions, practical ones, taxes, lawyers, security. My mother sat quietly, her hands folded, her eyes fixed on the table. When she finally spoke, she said, "Well, I guess things work out sometimes." Sometimes. Danielle reacted differently. She cried. She hugged me. She said she was happy for me. But there was something tight in her voice, Something unsettled. Our relationship shifted after that in ways that were hard to explain. Conversations felt careful, compliments felt forced. The balance we had always lived with was gone. Slowly, small tensions began to surface. My parents started calling more often, asking questions they had never asked before, suggesting things they thought I should do with the money, who I should help, what I should fix. It felt like my life had suddenly become a family project. When I hesitated, when I said I needed time, my mother would sigh. "We're just trying to guide you," she said. But it didn't feel like guidance. It felt like expectation. Like the price of finally being worth something. At family gatherings, people looked at me differently. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms. Compliments were wrapped in jokes. "Guess Naomi's buying dinner," someone laughed once. I smiled, but inside, something tightened again. Danielle began to pull away. She canceled plans. She grew distant. When we did talk, there was an edge to her words. "You've changed," she said once. I wanted to tell her I hadn't, that the world around me had. The money sat quietly in the background, but the tension grew louder. My parents argued more. My mother became critical in ways she never had before. "You're being selfish," she said one evening when I refused to loan money to a cousin I barely knew. The words stung more than I expected. I started to feel like the lottery ticket had not lifted me up, but placed me under a spotlight I never asked for. Every decision felt judged. Every boundary felt like betrayal. And then one evening, my mother said something that made me realize this was no longer about money at all. She said, "You owe us." That was the moment I understood that the story I thought I was living was not the one they were telling themselves, and that understanding would lead to a choice I had never imagined having to make. The moment my mother said, "You owe us," something inside me finally shifted. Not loudly, not suddenly. It was more like a door closing very softly, the kind of sound you only notice afterward. I sat there at my kitchen table, the same place where I had checked the lottery numbers weeks earlier, and realized that the love I had been trying to protect was no longer the same love I had grown up believing in. Asked her what she meant. My voice was calm, even though my chest felt tight. She didn't hesitate. She talked about sacrifices, about raising us, about everything they had given me. Her words were measured, almost practiced. My father sat beside her, silent, nodding occasionally, like he agreed but didn't want to say it himself. I listened. I always listened. She said the money had come to me by chance, but family was not chance. Family was duty. She said people were watching, that it didn't look right for me to live comfortably while others struggled. When I reminded her that I had always helped when I could, she waved her hand gently, like brushing away dust. "This is different now," she said. "This is serious money." That was when I understood that my worth had finally changed in their eyes, but not in the way I had hoped. I wasn't more loved. I was more useful. The requests didn't come all at once. They came slowly, disguised as concern. A loan here, a favor there, help with a mortgage payment, tuition for a distant cousin. Every request came with a story. Every story came with pressure. When I said yes, it was never enough. When I said no, the room grew cold. Danielle stopped calling altogether for a while. When she finally did, her voice sounded tight, careful. She asked how I was doing, but didn't wait for the answer. She talked about how hard things had been for her lately, about how money changed people. I wanted to ask if she meant me, but I didn't. The real breaking point came on a Sunday afternoon, weeks later, when my parents called a family meeting. Those words alone made my stomach drop. Family meetings were never about feelings. They were about decisions already made. When I arrived, People were already there. Aunts, uncles, Danielle. Papers were spread across the dining table. I recognized the table immediately. The same one from Thanksgiving. The same place where everything had first cracked up. My mother gestured for me to sit. My father cleared his throat. Someone mentioned how grateful they were that I came. I noticed how no one asked if I was okay with this meeting. They had assumed I would be Dot. They began talking about a plan. A plan for the money. Not suggestions. Not ideas. A plan. My name was on none of the papers. I listened as they spoke about investments, donations, shared accounts. When I finally asked where I fit into this plan, my mother looked genuinely surprised. Well, she said, we assumed you'd want to help. I said I needed time. I said I wasn't comfortable making decisions like this in a group. My voice shook just a little, enough for Danielle to notice. She looked away. That was when my father finally spoke. He said, "Don't forget where you came from." The words were quiet, but they landed hard. I felt something rise up in me then. Not anger, sadness. A deep, heavy sadness that settled into my bones. I looked around the table and realized no one was seeing me anymore. They were seeing numbers, possibilities, solutions. I stood up slowly. I said I loved them. I said I needed space. My mother's face hardened. She said I was being ungrateful, that the money had changed me, that I was turning my back on family. I wanted to scream that they had turned first, but I didn't. I picked up my coat and walked out. That night, I cried for the first time since Thanksgiving. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quiet tears in the dark. I cried for the little girl who learned to stay small, for the woman who believed patience would be rewarded, for the family that felt suddenly out of reach. Days passed. Calls went unanswered. Messages grew sharper. Rumors reached me through others. That I was selfish, cold, changed. I stopped correcting them. I didn't have the energy. Then, one afternoon, Danielle showed up at my door unannounced. She looked tired. Not angry, just tired. We sat across from each other in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. She said she felt like she had lost her place, that the money had flipped something upside down, that she didn't know who she was anymore. I listened. And for the first time, I didn't rush to fix it. When she asked if I could help her financially, just temporarily, something inside me went still. This was the moment. The real one. The moment everything had been leading to. I said no, not cruelly. Not loudly. Just no. Her face fell. She accused me of forgetting family, of punishing her for something she didn't do. I wanted to tell her that I had been punished quietly for years. But instead, I told her the truth. I told her I needed to choose myself for once. She left without another word. After that, the silence became complete. Holidays passed without invitations. Birthdays came and went. I was no longer included. It hurt more than I expected. Even when you know something is unhealthy, letting go still feels like loss. But in that silence, something else began to grow. Peace. I started making choices without explaining them. I set boundaries and watched who respected them. I learned that love that demands payment is not love at all. And still, late at night, I wondered if I had done the right thing. Because the hardest betrayal wasn't theirs. It was realizing how long I had betrayed myself. And the next step would force me to decide whether healing meant forgiveness or walking away forever. After the silence settled in, my days became quieter than they had ever been. Not empty, just quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you notice things you used to ignore. The hum of the refrigerator at night, the way sunlight moved across the floor in the morning, the sound of my own breathing when no one else was around to fill the space with expectations. At first, that quiet scared me. I had spent my whole life measuring myself against other people's needs. Without those voices, I didn't know who I was supposed to be. I woke up some mornings with a heavy feeling in my chest, like I had forgotten something important. It took time to realize what I was feeling was grief. I wasn't just grieving my family's absence. I was grieving the version of them I had believed in. The parents who would eventually see me. The sister who would stand beside me without comparison. Letting go of those hopes hurt more than losing their approval. I tried to stay busy. I worked, I cooked. I walked around my neighborhood in the evenings, watching other families through warm windows. Sometimes I imagined what they were saying to each other. Sometimes I imagined my parents sitting at that same dining table without me. I wondered if they missed me, or if my absence had simply become another adjustment. Money still sat quietly in the background of my life. I used it carefully. Slowly, I paid off debts. I fixed small things I had put off for years, but I avoided big changes. I wasn't ready for them yet. Big changes felt too loud for the season I was in. Weeks turned into months. The sharpness of the hurt softened, but it didn't disappear. Instead, it settled into something dull and constant. A reminder. Some nights, I replayed old conversations in my head, wondering if I could have said something differently, if I could have softened the blow, if I could have saved something. But every time I followed that thought to the end, I arrived at the same truth. I had finally told the truth, and truth, once spoken, cannot be taken back. The first real shift came quietly on a random afternoon. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sorting through old papers, when I found a birthday card my mother had written years ago. It was simple, loving, proud. I sat there holding it for a long time, realizing that love had existed once, genuinely. That mattered dot, it helped me understand something important. People can love you and still hurt you. They can mean well and still cause damage. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about pretending nothing happened. It was about accepting what did happen without letting it poison the rest of my life. I didn't rush forgiveness. I let it come slowly, like everything else. One evening, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer it. When I saw my father's name, my heart started beating faster. We hadn't spoken in months. I let it ring twice before I picked up Dot. His voice sounded older, quieter. He didn't apologize right away. He didn't explain. He just asked how I was doing. I told him the truth, that I was learning, that I was okay most days. There was a long pause. Then he said I should have spoken up sooner. It wasn't everything, but it was something. We talked carefully after that. Short calls. No big topics. No money, no plans. Just weather, work, small memories. It felt fragile, like something that could break if handled too roughly. I learned to accept that not all relationships heal the same way. My mother took longer. When she finally reached out, her words were guarded. She said she missed me. She didn't say she was wrong. I didn't ask her to. I wasn't ready to hear it anyway. We met once in a quiet cafe. She looked smaller somehow, less certain. We spoke politely, carefully. When the conversation drifted toward the past, she grew tense. I realized then that closure doesn't always come with understanding. Sometimes it comes with acceptance. Danielle remained distant. I heard about her through others. Life had not gone as smoothly for her as it once had. Part of me wanted to reach out. Another part knew I needed more time. Healing doesn't follow a schedule. What surprised me most was how my relationship with myself began to change. I noticed how often I used to apologize, how quickly I used to explain, how deeply I used to fear disappointing people. Without realizing it, I had built my life around being easy to live with. Now, slowly, I practiced something new. Saying no without guilt. Making choices without asking permission. sitting with discomfort instead of running from it. These things didn't make me hard. They made me honest. One night, as I lay in bed, I thought about that lottery ticket, the way it had been handed to me, the way it had been meant to shrink me. I realized then that the real gift hadn't been the money. It had been the clarity. That moment had forced everything into the open. It had shown me the shape of my relationships without decoration. It had revealed where love ended and expectation began. That knowledge was painful, but it was also freeing. I stopped waiting for my family to return to who they used to be. I started meeting them where they were, without losing myself in the process. Some days, that meant closeness. Other days, distance. Both were okay. Forgiveness came quietly, not as a grand decision, but as a series of small ones. Choosing not to replay hurtful words. Choosing not to define myself by their opinions. Choosing peace over being right. Still, there was one conversation left. One truth I hadn't faced fully yet. It lingered in the background. Waiting. Because forgiveness does not mean forgetting, and healing does not mean pretending everything is whole again. The final step would require something even harder than walking away. It would require deciding what kind of relationship, if any, I was willing to rebuild, and that decision would change everything that came after. In the end, life did not return to what it was before that Thanksgiving. It couldn't. Some moments change the shape of your story forever, even when they arrive quietly, wrapped in ordinary days and familiar faces. I stopped wishing things could go back. I started asking myself what moving forward should look like instead. I learned that closure does not always come with apologies. Sometimes it comes with understanding your own limits. Sometimes it comes with peace that grows slowly without announcement. I stopped waiting for my family to fully see me the way I wanted to be seen. I began seeing myself clearly, and that changed everything. Over time, my parents and I found a careful rhythm. Not the old closeness, but something gentler and more honest. We spoke without pretending. We visited without expectations. I learned that love does not have to be loud to be real, and distance does not always mean rejection. Sometimes it means respect for what still hurts. Danielle and I eventually spoke again. Not to fix the past, but to acknowledge it. We didn't resolve everything. We didn't need to. We named what had been unspoken for years, and that alone lifted a weight. Our relationship became something new, quieter, more equal. Still imperfect, but no longer built on comparison. As for me, I built a life that felt like my own. Not impressive, not flashy, just steady. I learned to enjoy my mornings, to trust my instincts, to sit at my own table without feeling small. I used the money wisely, yes, but more importantly, I stopped letting it define me. It was never the point of the story. It was only the mirror that showed me the truth. Looking back now, I see that little lottery ticket differently. It wasn't an insult anymore. It was a turning point. It forced everything into the light. It asked me a question I had avoided my whole life. What am I worth when no one is applauding? The answer didn't come from my family. It came from the quiet moments after, from choosing myself without anger, from forgiving without forgetting, from understanding that love should never make you disappear. If there is one lesson I carry forward, it is this. You can love people deeply and still step away from what hurts you. You can honor your family and still honor yourself. And you do not need to be chosen by others to be enough. Some evenings, I still think about that Thanksgiving table. The laughter, the silence, the moment everything shifted, but it no longer feels heavy. It feels complete, like a chapter that taught me how to stand without shrinking. And that is how this story ends. Not with money, not with revenge, but with quiet strength, and the kind of hope that grows when you finally believe you are worthy exactly as you are.